Hello, hello. Welcome,
Hello.
welcome, one and all.
Good afternoon, Good evening, good something.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night. What was that? Truman Show, right? Yeah, it's a cool film.
I knew there was something messed up with my life.
It's really a reality TV show. That's it. We're really like actors, just paid to be friends with you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's the only way anybody would be friends with me is if you pay them.
Right, let's get on with the do's and don'ts before we get into more trouble. All right then, Scott, here you go. You're back.
Hey, do's and don'ts. Be nice, be respectful, be constructive. This is YouTube, not Reddit. Don't post anything that's adult, rude, offensive, or against other common sense. Don't advertise or promote anything. We all know you need a job. Don't spam the same question repeatedly. Every time you ask a question, it goes to the bottom of the list. Even if you were next, we'll take you out and put you last. Harassment of any kind is not tolerated. Incels, misogyny, all that nonsense, bigotry. You will be blocked from here, and we will pass your name around to everywhere else, including Discord, Slack, etc., etc. And lastly, have a good time.
Have a good time, indeed. Right. So let's do some introductions briefly. My name is Simon Lightfoot, Flutter Community Leader, CTO at DevInterest London, and you can follow me on Twitter at DevInterest London. Scott.
My name is Scott Stahl. I am also a Flutter community organizer and organizer of GDG Cleveland. I write code under the name Good Dog Apps, and I like to play with Dart and AI.
And we also have a Randall. Randall, welcome to the stage.
Hey, it's Randall Schwartz. I'm a Dart and Flutter Google developer expert for 5.5, I think almost 6 years now. And what that means is I get to spend a lot of time answering people's questions on places like Stack Overflow and Discord and Slack and stuff. So if you've been around for a while, you've probably gotten an answer from me on one of those. So it's been I've been pretty prolific. But for this show, I am the question magician, which means that I am watching the chat to see if people have questions for us, the panel. And you indicate that by putting Q: in front of your question. If you don't put a Q: in front of it, I think it's just discussion. It's just talking amongst yourselves. So the only way I know it should go in our queue, there we go, this bad pun every week, is to see the Q: in front of that. So that's that. And that's me.
Very cool.
I don't think Danielle's with us. I thought she was going to be here, but I guess not. Maybe she's running late.
Yeah, she might be running late.
But we do have a Raf. Raf, welcome to the stage.
Hello, once again. And I'm Raf. I'm doing Flutter and Flutter community stuff, and I'm here to have a good time.
All right. There's always a good time wherever Raf goes.
Indeed.
I've been there.
Yeah. Nice.
I would be remiss in not saying that the tickets are now open for just to make sure if you haven't heard about it, we're going to be doing FlutterCon USA next month, end of next month. So get your tickets now. In fact, we have a discount code, and I'll pop that in the chat for everyone and a link to where you can use it. So let's see if this works. One time I want it. Tell you what, the link's not going to work, but you can have the discount code. It's FlutterCom, COM for community 24. Pop that in the chat. Hopefully it comes out. There you go. It's FlutterCom 24. and you can use it on the ticket sales site. So if you go to it's flutterconusa.dev website address, and you can get tickets. There you go.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be there as well. Randall's, you're going to be there?
Yeah, maybe virtually.
No, you had to be there. We had to do a live show. That'd be awesome.
Soon I'll start traveling again I mean, I can travel already, and as a GDE, I actually get parts of it reimbursed if it's the right kind of program. But I just haven't really had the desire to fly around anywhere quite yet.
Right. Well, what's been going on for everyone? Anything we need to chat about? Or should we get straight to questions?
Yeah.
Well, what happened here is, Essie, you just asked your question twice. I was just moving you to the bottom. Don't do it again, please.
Yep.
So, yep, ask the question 2 times. We can see it very easily. Anyhow,
Ask once. Just say.
Yes, ask one time. Just one time. And sorry about my phone. I am expecting an extremely important phone call. I cannot mute it. So if the call comes in, I have to take it.
And dive out. Do your best best diving impression for a phone. Right? Anyway,
very
right.
good one.
We also seem to do we should have some time for some live coding today as well. So we've been missing that, I think. I think everyone's been missing that. So
yeah.
Depending on who's got some. Randy, you gonna stick around for a bit?
I'll stay on the screen until Danielle gets here.
Okay.
Who knows? Right. You might answer a question.
Yeah, I might answer a question. I sometimes do answer questions. I answer questions a lot in the chat. So
it's
even
hard
when
to
I'm
get
not
in any answers with Simon around.
That's true.
I'll see you guys later.
What? No, come back.
Sorry.
You're our answer man.
I don't mind. I'll have a day off. That's fine by me.
I'm just here taking notes.
Yep.
Should we dive straight into questions then? I mean, like,
sure.
We've already
covered FlutterCon. Flutter and Friends is also coming up in Stockholm.
Yeah.
Wish I could be there this year, but unfortunately not. And what else? I guess those are the 2 main ones right now.
I think there's all sorts happening. There's also a DroidCon India that's going to take place for the first time this year.
Oh, nice.
And that's going to have a Flutter track as well.
How do I get them to take me to Singapore?
Start a conference there. There you go.
I think he's already got one. Anyway.
So, right. Let's jump on straight in. Why not?
Moving on. How can I determine the last online synchronization with Firebase, not just the latest document change? Using the snapshots method, snapshot and metadata emits once initially and on doc changes. So not just the latest doc change.
I'm not sure.
But what? So basically, I think they're wondering how do they determine the last sync, even if there was not a doc change.
Sorry, yeah. When did it last check? Yeah. That's a good question. Actually, I thought there was like a top level thing for that, but you know what? I may be mistaken. It's been a while. I mean, I know there was like you could do like the top level. There's top level things for like online, offline, and checking a few things like persistence. I don't know if it gives you last check state. Move along. That's the package, Cloud Firestore. That'll help. Let's see. Have a look. I mean, it's one of those things, right? So David, I mean, have you checked? Pardon me. Have you checked the native packages? Because it's one of those things, right? If the native packages, that's a bit better. Yeah, if the native packages don't support it, then you're not going to get it either way, right? Actually, API reference. For some reason, I feel like there's some top level. Right, persistence enabled, SSL enabled cache size. Clear persistence. Yeah, it's interesting. Snapshots in sync.
Use Stream. They give me cool stuff.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, that you might be able to take advantage of this, right? So snapshots in sync returns a stream which is called each time all the active listeners have been synced, which is what you're asking for. When did it last sync, right? Anything. So that's going to emit an event. It's going to emit a blank null event, right? So just listen to the snapshot, and when you get the listen event come through, you know that it's just been synced. And you can keep track of the date time of that if you want to, if you specifically need the date time. That sounds like a good idea to me. That answers the question, doesn't it?
Yep. And apparently Randall has been recognized.
What?
Check the chat. All right.
Oh, yeah, true.
Trying to set up DexGuard, facing a few issues. Any guidelines on how to configure DexGuard on a Flutter Android app?
With difficulty. DexGuard itself, right? So follow the guide. So first of all, if you're using DexGuard, it actually has a setup guide, and that setup guide will explain you the steps and what you need to change and do to actually get DexGuard working. But like anything, it's just not simple. It's not easy, right? So there's zero guidelines I can give you apart from what the setup manual says, because it does take you through it step by step. There are guides in there. I would suggest what you do, Peter, is disable all of the functionality. So there's a YAML file that you supply with the configuration. Have the Flutter YAML file. There's an example inside the setup guide. Put that configuration in your project and set all the flags to false, right? So it doesn't make any changes to your project. So it's not secure. It's not doing anything, right? Then you update your follow the guide to update your Gradle scripts and make sure DexGuard's working. And then you can then make sure that it runs and compiles and works, right? And then once you've got to that point, then you can start turning on the different features and see what happens, right? But yeah, like anything, there's no magical answer to this. Like, for example, once you do this, you'll probably find out you'll have to do what's called set up the ProGuard rules and set up things that you need to keep and stay, not get obfuscated, and blah, 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 blah. So, but yeah, disable all the functionality. So disable all of the protections on Android, disable all the protections it puts on Flutter, and then enable them one by one and test it each time you enable a feature. Otherwise, you won't know what you turned on that suddenly made the app break, right? And then you can then start chipping away at it. But it's not a simple thing to configure. And as you change your application, you might need to change it as well. It's just not simple. But this is just the nature of the beast. Right. There you go. That's your answer. For those that don't know, DexGuard is the commercial GuardSquare. Is it GuardSquare the company? I think GuardSquare is the company. They make ProGuard, which is the minifier and obfuscator that's being used by default on Android builds. And basically, that removes code. So the way that Android works is you compile your Dart code. You compile your Java code. This is or Kotlin code into bytecode. And then at the end of it, it then does tree shaking the ProGuard does tree shaking to remove all the things that aren't being referenced. That's the hope if you have it turned on in release builds. That's the minify enabled flag in your Gradle script. You can also minify the resources. Shrink resources is the flag. But all of this is in chance of getting rid of code that you're not using and just making your app smaller to download. So what ProGuard doesn't do is obfuscation. That's where DexGuard comes in. It will actually change all the names of all the functions, strip stuff out, make it harder to decompile and to reverse engineer your application to protect your application. Now, there's only so much you can do in JavaScript, but also equally in Flutter, because it compiles to machine code, they can inject debug traps, right? So this is things that stop you from debugging, stop you from reverse engineer. So as you go through, if you're debugging it step by step, it would crash the debugger. Like they can add these kind of things in there to make it really difficult to reverse engineer. And they can also like do runtime encryption and self-modification, all sorts of other fun things because it's machine code. You can do this kind of cool stuff. All of this isn't just named to protect the application from being reverse engineered. But at the end of the day, it's a cat and mouse game. Anything runs on the device, eventually, it can be broken given enough time. Okay. There you go. So if people didn't know, that's what it's all about. And it's paid for, by the way. DexGuard is a paid for service. So that's my piece.
Scott, you're muted.
You're muted, Scott.
Thank you. Can you suggest Git repos that will take me from a beginning developer to an advanced Flutter developer? Well, there's always that one.
And there's also...
So I was just going to say that Alexei is also a GDE. In fact, I think he and his wife there are 2 GDE couples, I believe.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a few of these flying around. Yeah. So you've got that roadmap there. The link was also in the chat. If you haven't posted it, I'll post it again. You also got so this is the roadmap here, so you can follow this guide as a way of learning. There's also roadmap.sh/flutter, which is like dynamic. It's updated all the time, and this will track your progress with the tasks, and you can set them as done. And this gives you again a roadmap to learning, and it's not just like learning about building apps, it's also learning about not just about programming, right, which is like how you use lists and algorithms and so on. There's also a piece of this which is like how do you actually like deploy your application, how do you do analytics, right? These are all things that come into building an application, right? But then there's never a stopping point, right? Like you're always going to keep learning, things are always changing. So
I learn something new every day. Really, I mean, I've been doing this for decades now, and not Flutter for 6 years, but yeah, I still learn something new every day.
Where did 6 years go? I tell you, I don't know.
When you stop learning, you're dead.
Wait, is it more than 6 years?
It's a little more than 6, actually. It's like 7 to go back to the alpha.
Yeah, I think you were involved at the time when I started, and that was September 2017.
Yeah,
that was alpha build 6.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was already involved.
Yeah, 7 years. 7 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mine's a couple of months. Blimey.
Well, and I've actually been with Dart for like 12 years now. So, I started
you
real
and
early in
Gunta.
Dart. Yep.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I had my first repository with Flutter, and the first file is 8 years ago.
Wow.
There you go.
So you were messing with it when it was called Sky?
No. It was Flutter, but it was like 0.2 or something.
Yeah. Back when you had to use Dartium to run the code.
It can't have been 8 years ago. It must be 7 years ago.
Yeah,
Surely.
it had, because
It's probably rounding up.
The first commit under the name of Flutter instead of Sky was in August of 2017.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember how to set up some parts of my code, but I can remember that.
Right. Should we carry on?
Sure.
Why? When does the Escape Pause printer get next version? And it's been 2 years since the release.
Well,
is this
so for those
package?
Yes, it is. And for those that don't understand, so ESC POS is basically escape sequence point of sale printer. This is used by Epson and a few other printer manufacturers. They have similar things. And the idea is that you would send bytes out over a serial link. This can also be USB serial or an actual serial port and a few other ways. And there are commands that you send to the printer, and you can tell it to print a barcode or print an image, and you can send the bitmap of the image and stuff like that. So you can actually do receipt printing and things like this. Well, why are you asking us? We're not the people that made the package.
Yeah,
That's
we
the
don't
answer
know.
to this, right? And if you want a new version, update it. Fork
Yep.
the package.
Open
So you
source.
go to the package, go to GitHub or whatever it is, or whatever the repo is, fork it and release ESC
And if you
pos
can't
printer
do that,
2.
then contact the people who maintain it with the reason you think it needs updated.
Yeah, I think
Don't
before
just
you
say it
fork
hasn't been updated.
Yeah, before you fork
Hmm.
it, contact the people. Go follow the GitHub. Find, get their contact information, whether it's email address, or whatever. Send them an email and say, look, we haven't had an update. I really use this all the time. I'd like to take the package over. Would you be interested in letting me update and maintain the package?
You could do that by filing an issue. That's often a good way to have
That's
a
another one. Yeah, you
trackable
can-
conversation.
But contact them, and they might just say, "Yeah, here you go," and then you can.
Yeah. It's yours.
Yours.
Take it off of my hands. Yes. Cool.
Well, Lucas, I didn't realize you had been at Canonical.
Huh.
Right, what's next?
Interesting. All right. Is it bad to nest Sliver main axis group or have multiple inside a custom scroll view?
Nope.
Well, for performance,
No, it won't affect the performance whatsoever.
well, I mean, you can do it, but I imagine you would need to be careful not to overdo it.
No, doesn't work that way.
So you're scrollable within scrollable.
No, they're not scrollables inside scrollables. That's not what we're saying here. There's Sliver main access groups inside Sliver main access group.
There's
Okay.
still
Have
one
multiple-
scroll
It's
unit.
basically saying have one custom scroll view and have multiple Sliver main access groups. And you can have some inside desk inside others. You can have them concatenate together. There's tons of ways you can do it. And it's not gonna affect
I misunderstood the question. I thought you were talking about having multiple Sliver lists inside of a scrollable.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. That's not a problem though.
Scrollable
So-
Sliver lists is what I meant.
Yeah. But you can't have them in multiple Sliver. No, not in that way. You can have multiple Sliver lists in a Sliver main access group in a custom scroll view. But they're not scrolling independently because it's one scroll view.
Right.
Right. But I know what you mean. You mean multiple scroll views inside other scroll views. Yeah, you don't.
Yes. Which can be done. I believe I know you've got a gist for it, right?
We did it
And I
just
think
the
you
other
might even
day.
be packaged.
Well, you can do it, but the problem here is that it's really difficult to interact with the UI, right? So there is actually, I'll actually post a gist link actually now because it's one that people are quite interested in. I know. Let me find my gists. What do we call it? It was like scroll parent on overflow. There you go. I'll pop this in the chat. There's a link in the chat if anyone's interested. But briefly, I might as well share this briefly. So you wrap your inside your scrolling content. You wrap whatever more scrolling content you have. So you can see here we have a list view builder with single child scroll views inside. You wrap in between that. You wrap scroll parent on overflow. And what this is going to do is when this goes to overflow its scrolling, it will scroll the parent instead. And this way it will carry on scrolling once you reach the end of the internal scroll viewport. And then the widget that's it. It's a couple, I don't know, 50 lines or something. And all this does is listens and adjusts the scroll events to appropriately. But it really does solve that kind of problem. Anyway, links in the chat.
Very cool. Moving on. This is a lesson in vague. How to update data in real time. From
Did it.
what?
Send data in real, exactly that. Send data in real time.
Yeah.
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 Stream.
I mean, you need a way of you need a connection to the app, right? An open connection to the app that from your server side you can send data down to the app, right? Push it down that pipe to the app. So there's a lot of ways you can do that, but the way that works in computers is with sockets. Sockets are network sockets. That's the name given, which is basically a way of a channel of communication. And then the more common way of doing this, a higher level approach, is WebSockets. And this way it supports websites and web stuff in the future as well for whatever project you're working on. So WebSockets is a way, and there's plenty of stuff on that. In fact, if you go look for Simon Boring Show on the old YouTube, and you'll find I did a Boring Show on exactly this topic.
was boring. You don't want to watch it. It was
Three
boring.
episodes.
All right. Is it worth to move such as sorting a list outside build and doing okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes,
if you're
definitely.
just if you're just going to run list.sort,
Doesn't matter. Just any sort of data manipulation, just don't do it during build. You should not be manipulating any state during build. Build is to build the widgets. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do
that.
Don't do that.
Dynamic link is deprecated. Really?
Yeah.
What are the I'm kidding. What are the recommended paths to migrate? We need it to be cross-platform, including web.
Right. It already is. Dynamic dynamic links was never really cross-platform in that way, right? Like you do your deep links on any one of these things. It doesn't make a difference, right? It's about how you do it. And then there's tooling now inside Flutter to help with deep linking. So go look at I think there's some pages on the Flutter repo. Deep linking, UI navigation and routing. It's a whole page and video and everything. Yeah, I'll put the link in the chat, right? Android, iOS there. I actually haven't looked at this, but yeah, GoRouter, asset links, how to set it up.
And wasn't this this deep linking is deprecated coming from the fact that Firebase is no longer going to be supporting it, and people have to do it themselves?
Yeah, basically, what this is all about is the fact that dynamic links, which was a feature of Firebase, is deprecated now. It's no longer being used.
Yeah,
but yeah, there's you can do it yourself. I mean, there's like web just works. Web is just your URL, right? So the idea about doing this, which you should already be doing, is that your router, for example, here it's on Android. You add GoRouter or whatever, and then here they're setting up the fact that HTTP example.com will link into the activity, into your main activity, and you auto verify true. This will go to the website to verify you own this, so that it doesn't ask the user if you want to go into the app. It'll just do that by default. This is why you need to create an AssetX JSON file uploaded to your website, right, for the same domain name. That's what you need to do, right? That's your migration path. Just follow the normal setup, right? And then you have to make sure that the signing key in your AssetX JSON file, which this is the contents, so your package name and your fingerprint matches your release one. It's an array, so you should add your signing key. You get your fingerprint from your debug key on your local machine as well, and that way your local debug builds will also work with deep linking. So you don't just want your release key, as this suggests, right? You want to do key tool for your debug key store as well. But yeah, this is all known about. Like this is just giving like a Flutter way of doing it. But I mean, this is all the same if you just do it on Android normally, right? Same for iOS. And then once you follow these rules, you can then do example test it here, right? So you put whatever you want in and test it. It should open up your app and deep link into it. And then the final bit really is inside your app, which probably is in the cookbook example. You can go look at it. Is to then deal with the routing, right? So when you receive that deep link. So the package that I use on pub.dev is Unilinks. You don't have to use this, but I don't know what Unilinks 2 is, but anyway, Unilinks 3. Oh god. Right. Why? Oh, AppLinks. That was it. Let me change its name. Sorry. I remember that now. Yeah, AppLinks is the one. And this will just deal with the web, iOS, whatever. And it's just a nice way of being able to receive those deep links within your app. And yeah. So yeah, I'll pop that link in the chat. But yeah. Sadly, like just deep linking is complicated, right? There's a lot of moving parts. So yeah, good luck with that. It was still complicated even with Firebase.
And native too.
Sorry?
I just said that it's painful on native Android
Yeah.
too, so it's a lot of trial and error. So
It's not just Android, it's iOS, it's every platform,
Yeah.
right? It's just because like you're tying external stuff from outside your application into your application, so you're crossing those boundaries that you're working in many different systems, and it's going to be complicated.
Yep. And once you get it right,
Yeah.
though, you do the happy dance. You really do. I've definitely done that happy dance recently. So
I was going to
On
say
the
you're muted,
doghouse.
Scott.
it's like, yeah, it worked. It worked finally. Yes.
when you do it, you are dead inside and you don't want to do any dancing.
Yes.
Just imagine having
Dog
built
food bowl on your head before you stand on the doghouse and do the happy dance.
just imagine once you've built like, I don't know, 50 or 100 apps, and you put deep link in every single one of them, and it drives you insane every single time.
Oh.
Welcome to my world. There's no answer. There's no like push it, like install a package and it just goes, because it's specific to the way that your app does it, right? Like there is, I don't know what the tooling's like. I haven't tried the Flutter tooling, but I know there's tooling now for verification and helping you set things up. So definitely check out the Flutter tooling for deep link.
Yeah, that one we could check it out.
Alrighty.
All right, Rafael.
Do you know when the videos for FlutterCon EU are going to be uploaded?
Soon. Very soon. There you go.
Simon and I help those people with some stuff, but that is not our department.
They've been edited and uploaded at the moment, so they'll be published soon.
No, I mean they've been editing it since the day after the con
Yeah,
stopped.
I mean, like no, but literally it is like.
All right. Let's see
We've
here.
already got 15 questions in the queue still. We're gonna have to cut you off in about 5 minutes, so 5 more minutes, and then I'm gonna stop.
If you want any code today, don't ask any more questions.
Yeah.
All right. Using GoRouter supports to support screen. It has many subroutes. I want to navigate to support router from different screens. It should come from where I navigated from. I can navigate to support screen, but since we're dealing with defining support route, once it is navigating to that same location when we pop the support screen.
Wow.
Having some trouble wrapping my head around the way this is worded.
It sounds to me that they're having problem navigating to a sub route within inside another router.
Yeah.
Here's
the
so
first part again.
I'm gonna say, are you using multiple GoRouter routers? Because you can do that, or are you using a shell route, which is another way of doing it, or you can just add routes within sub routes within another route. That's another way of doing it. So, like, there should be no way. There should be no reason why it doesn't work. If you want to forcefully go to like the support screen and then to the sub route within that, then what you need to do is do GoRouter.go, listen to the GoRouter delegate, and once you get notified, then go to your sub route if you want to kind of like do one thing then the other, right? But there's a difference between going to a location and actually having the location URL be different screens. You can do that as well. So, for example, if your location is like /support for the support screen, and then the screen inside is /support/knowledge base, right? Then it's going to load the support screen and then the knowledge base screen, because they're subparts of each other. I don't know what to say. Yeah, try it out. Try harder.
Fingers crossed.
You can, madam. If you want to like get some proper help, like, because obviously there's too much here to kind of help in a question, post a gist. Go to gists, post a code in a gist, put the hash of the gist in the chat message, and then we can then load it up and talk about the code, right?
And I'm going to skip to somebody else so that we have an example of how this is done. All right, that's the only reason I'm skipping. On custom scroll view sliver list, when expansion panels expanded, the border and content of the list tile below it is misplaced. Here's the Dartpad ID. So what we can do now is we can go to Dartpad, cut and paste that ID number, and voila, there's the code.
What was the question? On custom scroll view, sliver list, when expansion list is panel, it's misplaced. Oh, I think we spoke about this before. Yeah. So this is the example. Okay. And it's on Dartpad. So let's have a look. So with Dartpad, for those that don't know, you can also directly link to a gist as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do that.
So if you have questions about specific code, that's the way we can see the code. And the reason that we don't have people just put a link in is because YouTube and Twitch kill the message if you try to put a link in it. They don't just edit out the link. They don't even send the message. You will see it on your end. We never even see that you said anything. So if you're wondering why your question never gets answered, check to see if you have a link in it, because then we'll never even see it. So this is how we have to do basically code reviews.
With missing comments everywhere. Right. Show column view.
That makes him crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you're just use what I've done. That just works inside slivers. What is this? So this is basically saying column view false. So you're saying it works in column view, is that it? And then it doesn't work when it's in slivers. Yeah. Well, obviously, the way that these are things that work together doesn't work. I don't see any reason why this wouldn't work. But then again, I mean, I don't see anything obviously wrong here, but obviously they're incompatible with each other, right?
There's a toggle at the top.
Oh yeah. How about that? But yeah, so we actually did. Let me dig this out for you. So in the WoW shopping app, we actually did proper recyclable, basically proper expanding panels in slivers, which is what you want. So let's go dig that out. I should really make it into a package. Here it is. Here, sliver expansion tile. So this is an example of it. This is all the code that makes it work. To be honest, it's not actually that bad, 400 lines. And this does custom slivers and things to make expansion tiles work instead of slivers, right? Which just sounds to me like what you're looking for. So I'll pop a link to that in the chat. You should be able to use that. There's an example of it working on the category screen, I think it is. So this is an example of it working. So yeah, so you create a tile expansion controller. You can see here. In this case, we gave it like a list of sections to be to initially start expanded, I think. Yeah, and we update those. I think this is so it stays expanded. I can't remember. Yeah, restorable. Yeah, there's just so that it stays expanded. But anyway, and then down here in the actual widgets, if I can find it, yeah. Sliver expansion tile host is just the surround which provides the controller, and then inside your custom scroll view, whatever you got slivers, you just put whatever slivers you want. So this side a category group, and inside the category group here's our sliver expansion tile with a header builder and a content builder, which are slivers themselves. So this obeys the rules. That means that you don't get lots of content being generated that is closed up. Once that expansion is closed, that content the widgets aren't made anymore or anything else. So yeah, it's really a really nice and optimal way of doing it.
This might be a little late, but there are a couple little follow-up comments here.
Yeah. Again,
show how that works. And toggle at the top.
So all right. So hopefully that helps.
Good deal. Let me make sure I do some housekeeping here. All right. How can I send a
And,
map string?
And questions are officially cut off. So come back in 167 hours if you want to ask more questions.
Yep.
Yeah. Come back next week for more questions. We haven't finished answering questions. We're just finishing taking new questions.
Yes.
Yep. Now,
and we'll try. What we'll do is we'll continue answering these questions, and we'll try and do some live coding, and then we'll answer questions around the live coding if it comes up during the coding.
Yes.
I'm very confused with this question. How can I send a map string dynamic with HTTP package when using multi-part request use case send files and fields? Shouldn't this just be JSON?
No. So, well, you just send a multi-part request. Send a multi-part request. So I think the problem here is you need to convert your map into form fields. So it's called form data. Sorry. So form data is a query string. It's the same form as a query string, and it's the body of a multi-part. Again, this all depends on how you're doing with the package, but we can have a look. This is a HTTP package, they said. Yeah. So a quick look at the documentation around this. I think Raf's getting the rum deal here is getting hidden behind the question. Sorry, Raf.
That's fine.
Stealth Raf.
Yeah, so multi-part request and method and URL.
The thing about web, and people keep forgetting this, is you have to send what they're expecting. You can't just pick and say, I want to send JSON payloads. No, you don't get to pick that. It's whatever the server is expecting, and whether it's form data multi-part, URL encoded data instead. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways to send data in a web hit. And so, you need to know what the server is expecting.
So Adil, is it Adil? No, sorry, Abdullah. It's Abdullah, right? Abdullah. Yeah. So it literally is an example right here. Like, you know, look, fields, and then field name and the value you want to give it, and files, and then you can give it a file. And so this file could also be JSON, right? So you can set the media type to be application JSON, and then the contents of it to be, you know, set from path, right? So it should be multi-part file somewhere. Hang on, let's go back. Multi-part file from data or something. Yeah, from string. There you go. So you give it your field name, like body or content or whatever you want to call it, and then the value would be your to JSON, and your content type is JSON. And ignore the file name. There you go. Right, there's a ton of ways in it, but it all depends on what your API requests, right? As Randall was just saying, right? But there's no reason why you can't use multi-part requests with fields. I mean, it sounds to me like that's what you're trying to do here with your map. You're either sending it as a data blob, or you're sending it as contents of a field, which you can also do, right? There you go.
All righty. This one's interesting. What is the use case difference between depend on inherited widget of exact type and depend on inherited widget of exact type on the WoW Shopping app backend?
Okay, let's go look at WoW Shopping app backend because those two lines, those two things are the same thing. So I think we need to understand.
Yeah.
The difference is
I'm wondering about if they're asking about a usual implementation for the use case and something you may have done unusual. Now, we all know that Simon never does anything unusual.
I do not. All my code is standard.
Yes, right.
In fact, it is, because I'm not using any packages.
Excuse me, I know a guy who was in charge of an entire Android team and who worked with you in New York who said no one can understand your code. You're not normal.
Okay, sure.
You know who I'm talking about.
Oh, so you're asking what the difference is between these two. Well, it's exactly what you see here. Listen. Right? So if you want to listen for changes, so if that widget, if the inherited widget should notify changes, then depend on, well, then it'll rebuild this widget that this context is from, right? Get doesn't rebuild, it just gets it, just does a fetch. And that's the difference. If listen is set to true, then you're depending on the changes. Otherwise, you don't. And the difference is this: if this changes, so if this returns back true, then it will notify, and then those widgets that had depend on would be rebuilt. So if we got a new instance of backend in the backend inherited widget, then these contexts that you pass in will get rebuilt if this is set to true. Does that answer your question? It's basically how you just use inherited widgets to do provide the stuff.
Okay.
Right?
For this next one, I'm wondering a little bit. Lucas Klingsboro, any chance you can jump on here if you want to? What would be a decent solution for a web view in Flutter Linux? What would a dynamic linked library work better than building a precompiled one or bundling? Sorry. Lucas is in the audience.
Right. I can give you an answer on this one.
Of course you can.
Of course you can. Well, so first of all, we're talking about sort of native code, right? So to just be clear about those that are viewing, and the problem here is Flutter Linux doesn't out of the box support WebView. I don't believe, and equally that there's no standard API that the operating system will use to let you sort of embed a WebView, right? So it's really kind of down to this particular flavor of Linux and implementation of other information, right? So it kind of makes it quite difficult to do. So the only way you're going to get around that is by embedding a web browser into your app, which means you're essentially shipping a web browser with your app. Not ideal, but it means that on Linux, on any flavor of Linux, you run your app and the web view is just going to work the way you expect it to, right? So this is where Paco is at right now, I'm sure. Now he's asking, would it be better to dynamically have a dynamic link library or precompiled one? So this honestly makes practically zero difference, right? As long as both are precompiled. A dynamic link library is a precompiled library that's meant to be dynamically linked into your app and run at runtime, versus a precompiled one, which is a static library, which would be compiled into your application. So this boils down to, Paco, if you're compiling your end application yourself with some C++ and make files, then you could use the static library, and then it would be pre-compiled in. But to be honest, the dynamic library is probably the easiest approach and gives you the ability to dynamically update it later without having to rebuild your app. And it makes zero performance difference. Absolutely zero. There you go. So I would say,
if I can add something to that.
Go for it.
Actually, the official Flutter embedder uses JTK, and you can embed the native view, which will be WebKit JTK, and it should work on every distribution. I got an example somewhere, so if I find
I've actually fixed it now. Okay, great.
So yes, I don't know if it's merged, but yeah, it is possible, and basically it's a platform view. Done.
Oh. Nice. Is it? Did you post it in the live chat?
If I find it, I will.
Pop it in the private channel here. Pop it in the private chat here, and I'll post it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You can do separate windows easily, right? Because that's just like your launcher.
True. You can also.
It all depends on what you're doing, though, right? Like, if you need a JavaScript channel, that's not going to work.
Alrighty.
You know why?
We have a link from Raf.
I was gonna say, guess who did this? It was Raf who did this. There you go. Yay.
No wonder he knows the answer. Did you just get that? Yes, you did. I was just posting that too.
Not fully my work, but yeah.
This is what happens when two people try to drive at the same time.
Good.
All right. I'm going to love this one. I'm facing issues on VS Code with import sorting, like the Android Studio group-wise import sorting. By group, I mean package, relative, and part import. Well, my first suggestion would be to switch to IntelliJ. Sorry,
So-
I am not a VS Code person.
Also not an Android Studio person. So
Well, yeah, but Android Studio, IntelliJ, basically the same thing with a few other parts bolted on.
sure,
for
but that's my
Android.
point. Like, you don't need all the extra Android stuff and the complexity it adds, right? So,
Right.
talking about which, new version of IntelliJ came out today. Don't update because Flutter and Dart does not support it yet.
Oh, new version of IntelliJ.
Yeah, the quarter release has come out.
Don't worry, Android Studio people, you'll get that in about a month when Android Studio bolts on all of the added things that they need to do Android development.
Right.
But okay, import sorting in VS Code. Anybody?
I don't know much about it. It just sort of works. I hit save and it
I think he's saying it
sorts
doesn't.
it. Yep.
Works for me.
What was this? I missed that.
Raph, you said it works for you?
Yeah, just I hit save and it does the job.
Yep.
What's this?
Also use
Oh,
Vim.
VS Code. Write a script to do it. There you go. Each time you do save, it runs the script from itself.
I had a client that ran a post commit hook, pre-commit hook that wanted it sorted in a slightly different way than VS Code's default. So every time I would hit save, it would, and then I would try to do a commit. The commit would blow up because it would say, that's not the right order. Here's the right order. And then I'd have to hit commit again. So it was like, I just got used to this hitting commit twice stuff over and over again.
And with this line I just posted, he actually does correct package for extension.
Ah, yes.
In the next,
Yeah, I think that's what I'm using.
Dart import.
Yeah, the Dart import extension. Yeah, I think that's what I'm using.
I just remember there's in the Flutter community we have import sorter. That's
Cool.
one of the community packages. It's up on stream. Yeah. Import sorter. Dart imports, Flutter imports, package imports, project imports. There you go. And you can add it in as a dependency, run some scripts, and configure it however you want to configure it with a pre-commit hook and everything.
There we go. This is probably what my former client was running.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to bounce back to an older question because I just noticed we have a follow-up. This is regarding manipulating data inside of the build method. And they're saying, but the data is created inside the build method. Do I still need to move sort outside of the build and pass the data to a new one?
Okay.
Why is data being created inside the build?
I mean, look. So Roberto, it's about being like, there's no real problem with doing sort inside, right? But the point here is, if you've got like 5 items, then sure, sort inside the build, because like there's no real. If you were to do that sorting of like 5, 10 items 60 times a second, 100 times a second, you're not really going to have any big performance impact, right? This is like, you get the freedom to choose, right? The reason we don't do sort is because you don't know when the build is going to get called. And therefore, if you're sorting maybe, or your sorting is very complex, like multiple levels deep and like blah, 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 then you're going to be delaying your build and you're going to be slowing down your app and giving performance jank to your app because you're doing all this work during build. The question is, how often is that data being built, and how often? And I mean, the real problem here is, why are you trying to build the data during build? And is this data or widgets, right?
Yeah,
like,
why is it being created during build?
Then it should be sorted during build, right? Like so again, like there's no hard and fast rule about it as to don't do sort during build. The point here is, depends on what the data is you're sorting, right?
Well, and the way I like to think of it is, if you're going to be doing logic operations that could take any amount of time, remember, you are trying to do this at least 60 times a second.
Yep.
So if it starts eating up time, you run into a problem that for the user is going to look identical to blocking the main thread, because your build is blocked until this is done. And now that can start inducing jank. So it's not technically blocking the main thread, but the result from the user's perspective is completely the same.
How is it
All
not
right.
technically blocking the main thread? It is blocking the main thread. That's the point.
Well, I was thinking of it blocking the UI entirely, but you're right. It does block it during the UI build.
Yeah.
Instead of blocking. I was thinking of blocking the main
It's-
thread as preventing the build in the first place, but it does end up being the same.
Yeah. It's more complicated, but it ends up being the same.
Yeah.
And so you have separate render threads.
It can't complete the render until the build is finished and the build is doing actions. Then it's going to differ the render phase.
Okay. Moving on through the fog.
Yeah.
This is easy. Melos, you're already there.
Yep. I already answered
That's
that. In
what
chat.
we all use.
Yep.
I will mention that the new version of Flutter is actually getting a new feature. It's currently an experimental feature that you can enable, which actually gives you Monorepo support built into Flutter. That was released in the last release from last week. We spoke about it on the last week's show.
Oh, cool.
Was it last week?
I can remember the history of Flutter commits, but can't remember my code sometimes. Simon can't remember where he put his keys.
Not
But
only
remembers
Simon.
all of this other stuff.
In his keys. Yeah, code.
All right. When using GoRouter with stateful shell route, what is the best way to reset state of some stateful branch if needed?
Use a different key. That's what I'd say.
Because then it's no longer
honestly,
the same thing.
I think they treat that. I think the idea is that they treat. Sorry, it's been a while.
Well, and there's another interesting thing. If you're looking to reset it, would it make more sense to use immutable stateless widgets and rebuild?
Well, no, this is the actual routes
I'm just tossing
themselves.
that out there. I'm not saying it is a better way.
This is the routes themselves, right? So in stateful shell route, yeah. They try and treat them like widgets, right? But I don't know if they actually do have the same. No.
Okay, just an observation. I think we've got some lag going on. I'm just now noticing Lucas's comments about workspaces. So I think we've got some delays.
No, workspace is what we're just talking about. That's the thing. That's the new feature.
Right. But what I'm saying is I think we've got a delay in, I think we've got lag.
Sure, there's normally about 5-10 seconds.
Between YouTube.
Also, someone could be playing it further back in the history anyway. Anyway, right. So what was the question? When GoRouter is the best way to reset state of something? See, look at this, right? There's no nice way of me answering that, right? Because
when I see a question like this, it looks to me like somebody's thinking imperatively rather than thinking reactively. The stateful branch should reset itself based on things that change in observable data.
Right, but I think they're talking about trying to get the variable values to reset back to default.
Again, imperative. That's thinking imperative, not reactive.
No. So this is an example here, right? So you have an actual route as declarative, almost like declarative UI. You define your routes declaratively, right? So here you can see you've got a builder, and then inside that, where is it? There's your branches and your stateful shell branch, and each one of these, and basically it's saying like, how do I reset the state of this? I mean, like, you can just rebuild your router, right? That's the other option, right? So you can actually, this router, even this is like obviously a final variable, you can have this be a function that returns a value and then just reinstate material app with a new router with your new configuration of routes. I mean, I don't know what you're trying to do here in your branches. So it really does. Maybe post some code and we can answer next time. But reset state. I mean, you're just trying to reset the state of GoRouter, which you can just do with GoRouter itself, right? Just navigate to somewhere else.
Okay. All set?
Okay.
Sure.
Yep.
How do I override material localizations to change the actual words in the translations? Some words I would like to change in the data picker, for example.
Date picker.
This is not ARB file type stuff.
Date picker. Yeah, so you can just override it. There you go. So just make an implementation of material. So that's literally how it works. So hang on, let's find it. Let's find it's in the repo. Let's see. Let me bring this up. So material localizations as a class is an abstract class, right? There's no implementation for these functions, right? So what you can do is you can see here there's a default and a global. You can actually take like global, extend global, and make your own custom material localizations that extends global, right? And then when it asks for a particular language, send back your implementation of that language, which again is just you extending that language. So was it material localizations? There you go. I know. Let's choose BG. Is that? Oh, I know what that is. Bulgarian. There you go. So you could just extend this implementation of it, and then override the getter to return back whatever you want. Then what you do is you put your implementation inside of Material App. So by default, Material App will put its ones only in there if you don't specify any. If you specify localizations, you need to specify the global one and the widgets one. So this was it global widgets localizations. You need to make an instance of this, and there's global material localizations, which you also need to provide, and you provide them in an array of localizers. Where are they? Localization delegates, that one there. So you just put a square brackets, and provide those two, and you can provide your overridden one with whatever language changes you want. There you go.
Very cool. We are getting there, and then there were 4. This is going to be an interesting panel one. Raf, why don't you kick this one off? What are best practices to optimize build size and performance? You haven't answered anything yet, Raf. Well, maybe one.
Why me?
You know the answer is
release build.
well, I was gonna say the obvious answer: don't build so much code. They'll be smaller and they'll be higher performance.
Break your widgets down into other widgets for one.
Yeah,
so
don't have really big build. Don't have big build methods. Don't have methods that return widgets. Like the input inside your build method, right? Because that just makes one big method, right? The platform can't cache and rebuild properly.
That's the subject of an old video Craig Lebens did. There was a big question years ago about should you use variables that are widgets that you created? So in other words, create another widget, or should you just use a method that builds a widget tree and returns it? And in the end, you're always better off using a new widget. Don't use them. Don't use a method.
Anyway, I mean, best practice for optimizing build size. As we said earlier, you can enable, there's stuff you can do on each of the individual platforms, like enable shrink resources and minify enabled inside of Android. Don't include so many dependencies. There's another one. If you're going to include 50 dependencies, they're going to include 50 other dependencies, and they're all going to include some native code. You're going to have one massively long build time and one massively big app. For what?
Yeah.
So just make sure you choose your dependencies wisely.
Yes.
Also, most of the times the Dart
things.
code is not that big, but the native dependencies are big. especially on iOS.
And you can't tree shake them either, right?
Yeah.
So the native all the native code gets included in because it doesn't know the Dart compiler runtime doesn't. The two things, they're two different optimization paths, so you can't optimize them independently. What you can do is tell it to strip them out in ProGuard and things like that afterwards, but that's a manual thing you need to do.
Let's have some fun with this. What are things we have actually seen that killed performance when we looked at other people's code? I'll start. Never, never, never use a 4K image for an icon.
Wow.
I was used to.
Okay. Don't use, and especially if you're going to show like 25, 30, 50 icons on a scrollable list, if you use 4K images for every single one of those things, your performance is going to go down like a submarine with a hole in it. Okay.
Wow.
It's like the same as like when people
Simon knows the job I'm talking about.
But it's interesting because the same thing happens in that regard to not managing your server side correctly. So what will happen is people will have content that's generated by users that they can upload, like taking an image on their camera, uploading it. And then obviously on the server side, it should take that image and then process it into multiple versions of the image in different like sizes and compressions and so on. And then update the database with those data information. Then the app can then choose the appropriate one to display in the appropriate situation. But that's all a lot of effort. And most apps just say, oh, upload, and then you take the URL of the uploaded file and chuck that in the app. So you end up getting like a 40 megapixel image being used for practice for like thumbnails. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then not cache them.
Yeah, and then not cache them. Yeah.
Clean your SVGs.
Not just that. Sorry, not just that. You get the big problem. You get cache thrashing there because as soon as you load one image, it knocks the rest of them out because they're so bloody big.
Sorry, and I was just thinking about the SVG cleaner. And you're already mentioning the image equivalent? What was it that you used to knock those way down?
Well, so there's certain things, right? So you've got like there's a difference between runtime size and build size, right? So you've got PNG opt, and there's a few other like SVG. I think there's SVG cleaner or something like that.
SVG cleaner is the one for SVG.
But basically, this is about stripping out all the metadata from SVGs, so you don't have like ship all that nonsense. You only ship the actual path information. The other one is like images. Like that's another one. Like WebP. WebP is a much better compression scheme than JPEG for a lot of things. So I've seen this before where people have like they need transparency in the image to make their design work. So they go with PNG, and PNG is a lossless compression, and that means it's going to be pixel for pixel perfect. Great, but then what you're going to get is a 4 megabyte PNG file in your application. And it's like, well, WebP that, you get your alpha channel, you get your lossy compression on the colors, but what you get back out of it still works exactly as you think, no perceivable difference, and it's 100 kilobytes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, again, choosing the right file type for your images and compression for your images. Again, don't put PNGs when you can use JPEGs, right? Like that's another thing that always happens, right?
And don't use JPEGs when you can use WebP.
Something else actually that enough people don't do this. Hang on, let me bring it up. Flutter.
See, we're cooking. Raph, think of something really stupid that you've seen in the past.
So, as you can see here,
let's not go to my private code.
JPEG, WebP, GIF, animated WebP, GIF, all these lovely things. Oh, do you remember that? WAP bitmaps, WBMP. Anyway, that's old school. That's like for anyone who doesn't know, this was like not the Nokia like black and white images that you'd get on like your Nokia phones for like the title screen and stuff.
Wow.
Anyway, funny enough, we still support them apparently. I suppose in maybe some places it might be actually good. This is what I was looking for. So resolution aware assets. A lot of people don't do this. Where basically, if you've got some icon or some resource, provide directories with the scanning factor with that same resource inside, and the Flutter will automatically know what scale factor your device is running at and choose the appropriate image. So again, you're not loading PNG Crusher. That's the one. Thanks, Chris. They don't you don't load the incorrectly sized image and get scaling artifacts and other horrible things going on, right? But again, all this takes time, right? So a lot of the time is once you get your code working, start paring it down, start looking at what the biggest assets. Just look at your asset size versus your code size in your final APK. That's another thing you can do. Sorry, APK analyzer. So inside of Android Studio or inside the plugin, Android plugin, if you add it to IntelliJ, you can go to Tools and open up APK Analyzer. Select the output of your release build, not your debug build. Just remember, also, just another thing to note, that debug builds always run with a lot less performance than your release build. Same for profile. Profile runs, but the idea of profile is they're consistent in their delay. They're not don't have a delay, right? Or more time being used. So again, so you have debug is the slowest, then you get profile, and then you get release. But anyway, build your release APK, chuck it into APK Analyzer, and it'll tell you, oh, you use this much for this code or this much for this image, and so on and so forth. And you go, okay, I'll make that smaller. But frankly, the answer is don't use as much code, right? So if you're including lots of things that you probably don't need to include, then that's going to eat away at your chunk of your space of your app.
Well, I'd like to add something else too. Using const wherever possible can be a big one. And also keep in mind if you have...
I have to just, on that const point, just be clear. What that's doing is you're trading app size for runtime performance.
From memory, yes.
Right? So you'll get better runtime performance at the cost that it's going to make your app larger to ship your app. Yeah. Obviously, not by that much, but it will increase your app size because you're having these precompiled objects. That's the whole idea, shipped as part of your app, so that when it runs, it doesn't have to initialize those objects that are already there. That's
but what we're talking about when we say makes your app bigger, we're talking about, like in most apps, I'd say what, Simon, 10K, 100K at most.
Yeah.
I mean, and with the capabilities and storage of a modern phone, nobody cares.
Yeah, but the point is, like, he's talking about what was build size versus performance, and that is that trade-off, right? You're increasing your build size, right? But yeah, always try these things and then see and get the statistics and see what you're doing, right? But you can get an app smaller. Sorry, Scott, but I'll say, like, I've been releasing apps that are like okay, it was a while ago, but I remember pushing apps at 1.4 meg in size. It's a bit impossible to do that nowadays, but you should be doing, your app should be hovering around the 10 to 20 megabyte mark at most nowadays, right? If your app is like 30, 50, 60, 80 megabytes, this is the release download, not the APK size. So again, to be clear, sorry, I say this every time, but to be clear, you build your app and it ships an APK, what's called a fat APK. It has various versions of your app multiple times over within that APK. That's not what people download. So you may have like a 200 megabyte APK file. That's not the size of your app.
Yeah, don't panic.
To the Play Store, and on the Play Store's APK Explorer, it will tell you what it expects the download size to be for different devices. And it'll tell you that stuff, which will be more like 10 megabytes, right? Anyway, sorry.
All right. And going back to performance, let's say you have a stateful widget. And let's say you're calculating something. Now you're calculating it each time with a set state. Ask yourself, is this going to change from frame to frame? If the answer is no, then create a variable, do your calculation in its state, and stash it, and just keep reusing it. Don't recalculate it every single time. It's not necessary. But if there's a chance that it's going to come back with a different result, well, then yes, you're going to have to keep calculating it. But that can be a big one, especially in an animation, because if you're calculating something with every single frame and you don't need to, well, then you're slowing things down.
There's you just reminded me, there's another thing that most people do. A lot of people end up doing set state, and in like a top level widget, and it just like rebuilds everything, and you're like, why did you do it? To change one widget? Well, then create a value notifier, have like a value listable builder or a listenable builder or whatever that just rebuilds that one widget when that value changes, and the rest of the tree stays the same. And you can
that's all the way
decisions
down the middle of your tree. If you haven't used them, let's say you have the counter app. If you wrap the text field in a value listenable builder, then whenever you can set it up so that whenever the number changes, it rebuilds it, but it will only rebuild that particular text field and not the rest of the page. So again, you're being more efficient by not building anything you don't have to.
The other thing to say is all of the like custom painter flow widget, there's a bunch of them that all have delegates, and the delegates take a listenable. So it'll be all the custom layouts. So multi-child layout, single child layout will have a relayout parameter. You pass it any listenable, and it will read out the widgets each time that changes. And that can be a scrollable, that could be anything. So by linking listenables together, you can have only specific parts of UI rebuild when other events take place. Oh god, 5 kilobyte challenge for Flutter.
Yeah.
We did do that challenge, but that was like on source code, wasn't it? Like not on the end result.
I can't remember. It was a while ago.
I miss those. I miss those 64K memory challenges and things you see on like the older machines, right? Where all you had was like a limited amount of memory, so you'd have to be really. Some of the things I saw people doing, like just 64 kilobytes of like a deployable app. It's just.
Didn't somebody start throwing shaders into that too?
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, you can do all this kind of stuff with like whole 3-dimensional worlds in like 64 kilobytes or whatever. You like even 16 kilobytes. You're like, oh my gosh, right? This is where every bit matters. Compression matters. Everything. Custom code.
Well, as I'm being reminded here, it was 5K of source code.
Yeah. But it was good though. It was good. It's good fun.
Yeah. All right. So hopefully, I hope I don't ruin your name, Nitin, but hopefully that gave you at least some good ideas. And I realize the things that we've been saying were pretty basic, but to tell you the truth, the basics are the things people screw up the most. It really is. The advanced stuff, a lot of times you're paying really strict attention because you don't understand it and you're trying to make sure you get it right. And a lot of times you take the everyday stuff for granted and don't think about these things. So, all right. We have a banner for this somewhere.
So just bring up the questions. So you want to go look at Andre Bizotto's blog posts.
That's one way to do it. Yeah. That is one way to do it. Andrea basically was calling things by different names for stuff that a lot of people already do. What was he was talking about? The data layer, the oh, good grief. I used this in one project too.
Right here. Structure, feature first, layer first.
Oh, yes. That's not the one I was thinking of, but that's a great one.
So this is what you're doing. Yes, you have like presentation layer, application layer, domain layer, model services.
Yeah.
And then like
nice call, Paco.
Feature versus.
Oh, but, Christian's got a great idea for performance. Keep the name short.
No. Don't do this. It was actually quite. It's like, don't. No. Anyway, so there's a couple of different ways, and I don't like, you'll have different, there's pros and cons to both, and you can read the blog post around some ideas, but it depends on the application building, but normally it's a mix of both, right? There's no one sort of solution that fits all. Like you might have features of your app, and inside each feature you've got presentation, domain, and data if you wanted to, right? I mean, as long as you're consistent with your layout and structure, right? And if you're finding that your structure doesn't work, well, change it, move the files around, right? There's no limitation inside of Flutter and Dart as to how you structure your code, right? Your files.
Okay.
Your entire program could be in one big file.
Don't do that either. You could, but don't. Yeah, where's your bug? Line 60,582.
You know, the funny thing though, I remember when I first started Flutter, a lot of times we were writing these 10,000 line files and then refactoring them into many files after the fact.
I still find that
you can do
really
that.
helpful. Right? I still find it really helpful to build your widget layouts all in one big file, like you're maybe an entire screen, and then start pulling the widgets out that you want to reuse, you know, as you're building an app the first time. It's right, because it's easier to scroll up and down and navigate one file than jumping back and forth between lots of files, right?
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that.
All right. Yeah, as long as you part it out into multiple files before you're done.
Yeah.
Don't leave it that way.
Also, like, it's nice to build your like a layout is one big layout, and then start pairing it out. Like, think, oh, I'm going to reuse this and bring that out as its own widget and do this kind of thing. But yeah,
you can commit the file, but don't try to merge it that way. All right. Oh, yet another one of these too. MVVM. MVVM, sorry. So short version with this, imagine wearing a shoe that's about that much too big. Okay. Will it work? Yes. Is it going to be a good fit? No. That's basically it. You want to do more of a really a reactive paradigm, and also, what is it again? The which layer is redundant here that we don't need, Randall?
The VM.
The VM. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, you talk about this, right? But there is a view model as such, right? Your view model is normally your state or something else, right? Like,
right.
It's just a different name for the same thing. Like, but inherently, the reason why MVVM exists in a lot of platforms is because their UIs are not declarative in nature, right? Because they're imperative in the way that they define them. You need a view model to be able to like redo all the widgets or redo everything. So yeah.
Your view model in those star architectures is effectively doing what we're already getting for free with the Mark needs build logic.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like it's redundant with what we already have.
Hey, guess who?
Hey, making a special guest appearance.
You're perfect. You're perfectly on time to replace me.
Okay. I found the article that was being referenced. Should I bring it up?
Go for it.
So yeah, MVV in your architecture. I'll pop this in the chat. I remember this was added not too long ago. Yeah, I mean, like here, counter data is like is what you're going to get back. Yeah, so load from your subnet server, pass counter data back, defining your view model, which might be what you want to display on the screen. So this has like your error message or whatever else, and this is like your block state. You see, like this can be anything you like. This is just another name for it, right? And then there's a change notifier. Again, you can do whatever you need to do. And this is your controller layer, right? So you got your functions that modify the state. Again, you normally mix these together. Your view model is normally a model object, which is separate. You got counter model here. But anyway, it depends. Like it's all. And then use a listenable builder to build it. In fact, you go look at WoW Shopping app, and we do exactly this. That's exactly what the repos are in the WoW Shopping app. Is this right? Each one of them is a change notifier provider, and we have somewhere rebuilding the UI via like not necessarily listenable builder, but provider and other things to push down that update and then update your UI based on that state. Yeah. Again, standard practice state management. There's no imaginable thing there.
Okay, we have 3 follow-ups that I've included here. The first one, I have a question for the question. Is there any other package to replace Escape point of sale printer? Well,
Did you Google that? It's
did you
saying.
Google that? Did you try searching on pub.dev? Because that's the only thing we're going to do. We're going to go to pub.dev and we're going to run a search and we're going to find out if we find anything.
Oh, literally, I just did a search. The Epson, Epson EPOS. And now I've discovered and sent Epson EPOS. I don't know. Is there others? Epson printer? Probably.
Looks like lots of it. Quite possibly.
I haven't even bothered. Like, yeah.
So
Flutter
yes,
ESC
Simon
printer.
searched pub.dev.
But I mean, like
Oh,
you was it ESC POS printer was the. I mean, just what's the what? I mean, there's nothing for free. You know, if it doesn't do what you want it to do, update it.
Yeah.
What's the plus one?
Huh? Oh, look, there you go. Someone's 8 months ago. There you go. Literally right there. Am I a foreign citizen? There's an update one 8 months ago. Come on. This is not how this works. So
Yes, I printed this on my 3D printer.
what was that? What was that line from Legend? Waste of my time.
All right. Following up on the VS Code issue, they found the solution, and I put this up here in case anybody else is wondering. Had to add editor code actions on save.
Nice.
Source organize imports always.
Yeah, so there's a setting.
That is a solution that must have been found on Google somewhere, because I can't imagine coming up with that on your own. Yikes.
So you find out it doesn't exist because of the Chat GPT imagination.
It worked, so it couldn't have been Chat GPT.
I know, I'm just joking.
No, but it's Chat GPT and Gemini can be good, but you have to know how to ask the questions, and that's a whole. I could spend a show on that.
Oh.
Yeah, nobody asks AI questions. That's why I can't get anything in.
No more AI.
Regarding the GoRouter question.
Actually, Danielle hasn't introduced herself yet.
Let's answer this question. Let's do this question. Then
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Regarding the GoRouter question, they want to fire a build function when going to a particular branch. That's not expected behavior by default, but it is needed in some cases. When navigating, hang on. When navigating somewhere using a route, how would that not trigger the build function on that?
No, if it was a build function somewhere else. So imagine you've got a shell. Let's get an example. Let's say you've got a shell, or like you've got some sort of.
You're a little quiet, Simon. You lean back.
Sorry, let's say you've got some global navigation, right? And that you want that to rebuild when they go to a certain section of the app. Yeah, standard kind of stuff you might do. Right? So this is they want to fire build function when when going to a particular branch or route. Then just do that. I mean, literally just share a notifier between the two. You can share a function between the two and have that function called set state on the parent at some point, or have that, inside a change notifier, have it, do notify listeners, and that's it. You've done it. And you can have value.
Have a listener builder.
Yeah, that's what we just showed. So you just need the two bits to communicate, right? So you have to pass something across, be it a variable or some way of communicating. You can pass a string through if you want.
Oh, here's an interesting one. Verde. I guess they want to rebuild the route stack. And that's a cute thing you did with your name there, Verde. Verde in Espanol is green in English. Right. So, yes, Verde is the name green.
Yeah, it's a shame he's completely transparent. Missed the Alpha channel, man.
Simon, it's a lousy joke, and we saw right through it.
Oh, it's a perfect joke. Everyone's laughing.
He's not an alpha male. Not an alpha male.
Right, come on.
Oh, that's it.
I showed up at just the right time.
So, Danielle, you're at the perfect time because there is code coming up, and you're going to get to be part of that while I have to go throw my head into a tutorial.
Yep.
So, yep. See, I'm the one who's getting the laughs.
Right. Saw right through it. Nice.
Oh, that's good.
Nice.
Oh, come
that's
on.
a
You guys
dad
didn't catch
joke.
that the first time around?
I did.
Yep.
All right. With that said, I'm going to go run away. The dog is looking at me like I'm late. So
Okay. I guess
you all have fun, and I will see you next week.
See you then.
Hi, Scott.
We could have a quick play around with value notifiers for those people that seem not to know about it. I mean, it's like
We still have three. We have 3 questions, I think, right?
Do we? There's nothing in
We
the
still
queue
have-
for me.
I see 3 starred things still.
I mean, it's not refreshed.
So no.
I mean, if you want to click on them and bring them up, and we can see. But other than that, I don't see them. So.
Oh well, I'll carry them. I'll just mark them off. Okay. Gone.
I was also mentioned that Raf also just put this in our chat. So yeah, you can also transform. Now you can do this now. So you can actually add transformers to assets. Pardon me. And this allows you to, in this case, it was going to process into vector graphics.
Transformers, more than meets the eye.
And you go, look, package PNG optimizer, grayscale filter on an asset, and boom, boom. You're going to get an optimized grayscale PNG of bird.png in your final application when it's built, right? So,
cool.
I didn't even know this PNG optimizer existed, but that's pretty cool. Is that, or is this just an example? Is this just like a make-believe example?
Yeah.
Do you ever look? It should exist as a package on Pub.
I would think so.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Transformer for optimizing PNG packages.
Wow.
Whatever.
001 pre-0. That sounds like that sounds like the enterprise self-destruct code.
Right.
001 pre-0.
Okay, so decode and re-encode it. Okay.
It's encoding as a JPEG, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's an optimization for you.
Yeah, don't do that. This is done. No, don't do that. I mean, you can. Don't get me wrong, you can. But all you're doing there is it's not PNG optimizer. That's not what this is.
Right. It's turning it into a JPEG. That's optimizing it, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
And then green is green and not transparent.
That's a bit like making your car more eco-friendly by removing the engine.
Yeah. What was the other has anyone actually just talking about the colors there for a second? Has anyone run into the issue where you're trying to fade, like let's say fade between 2 colors, and you're trying to fade between transparent? Now transparent is effectively black, but with 0 alpha channel. And if you have a white that you're trying to fade out to transparent, it will fade to grayscale halfway through before it fades out.
Ew.
Does anyone notice that bug?
Uh-oh.
Wow.
Okay, it's actually one that gets a lot of people. So I'm going to show you this because this is kind of interesting. So it's let's see if we can get this going here. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. What's today's date?
14th of August.
14th. Thank you very much. It's not a new little update file for us to play around with.
Midway through August. Wow.
And we're gonna see
in
if we
theory,
can
some of the hottest days in the Northern Hemisphere.
It's been blazingly hot here in the UK.
Wow.
I'm so glad.
I don't even know.
Is it really stupidly hot in Japan at the moment?
It is. Every day is like 35.
Oh, yeah. We've had. I know it was 30 earlier. Put it that way. I think it was like 32 or something. But we're talking Celsius, by the way, people. There's American people with really weird sort of Fahrenheit numbers, right? So let's make all this a bit bigger. So this was just the app that we did last time. So I'm just going to made a copy of it. So I'm just going to nuke this and then start again. Yeah, I don't even remember what we were actually doing. A circular list. There you go. We're doing a circular list before. So let's nuke all this example. You can go get that from last week's. It's on my gists. And let's spin this. Let's have this one go for a ride. Let's see what happens. So yeah, so if you try and do a animated container, like saying you've got like a background color and it animates between transparent and white, what will happen is because the colors.transparent is actually black, the color, because each channel is so look, I do colors dot.
That's right. I think you mentioned this. Yeah. Yeah.
So look, if I show you, if you look at this, look, so transparent is black with a 0 alpha channel, right? Which means that because each channel is being linearly interpolated, each color, red, green, blue, and alpha, this means that your white goes to gray because they're halfway through, 50% alpha, but 50% white and black, which means you get like a fade out to gray and not a fade to transparent. So you actually need to keep the color the same, but set that opacity to 0. And this is something that most people mistake when they're developing. So let me just show you this one because it's kind of interesting. Why not? So we have a stateful widget here. Let's add a flag. Is this big enough?
Yeah.
So add a flag and call it I don't know, toggle. And
so it do that on a gradient too, right?
Oh yeah, it does. And then yeah, it can definitely throw people up.
This is why I'm a big fan of HSV gradients, just because I think it does a lot better math in terms of showing stuff up.
Let's do red and placeholder, just so we can see. This is just to give it a background that we can just see behind. And then what we'll do is we'll stick a animated container inside. And the child just to get it going. And our animate container needs duration, which will make ultra slow, just so we kind of like got an example of that, and then color. Let's do
white and transparent.
Sorry,
white and transparent.
Yeah. Why is this? Why? Oh, because const. Right. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll have this toggle change between white and color transparent. And then we'll add a, I guess actually saying that we could just do a center with a elevated button. When you press that button, we'll have it to set state the toggle, and then toggle me. There you go. Right, so that's our bit code. Let's restart, see what happens. Okay, so it's transparent right now. Toggle to white. So that's actually going gray to white. And you only notice these things. Toggle it again. It's going gray to transparent. And the red's in the background, so we can just see that, right? We could turn the red off, but then it ends up being like, and maybe black will help it be more visible. So that's you can't really tell with black because you need some sort of color. It's quite obvious when you have like multiple widgets and everything else. But anyway, so if I actually now do white with opacity 0, what I'm saying is I actually want to go between white and white that's transparent. So now when I toggle it, it's a lot lighter in the middle there.
It is, yeah.
It's very subtle, and we're running slow. Let me speed it up. Let's speed it up to like 1 second. And I wonder if that's maybe more easy to see. So that goes between white, yeah. So white and transparent,
right?
And then if I just say transparent here, remember that's now black. That's transparent. Do you see? Oh, there you go. You saw it there. It kind
Oh,
of.
great.
Do you see? It goes to the grey. So you kind of almost looks like you've got a different curve to it's not linear anymore.
Right.
Right. Because it's going to grey halfway through. Whereas if I go again, white with opacity transparent, now run it again. Look, linear. Nice and smooth. So there you go. There's a little factual bit of nugget of information to remember.
In unrelated news, but immediately happening as we speak, Jasper has just been re-released with an entire overhaul of their documentation. It's now incredibly extensive. So
Nice.
Check that out. Yeah, Jasper. Jasper is a Dart framework, so not Flutter, but it allows you to build websites similar to the way you would use React to build a website, and then compiles down, of course, to JavaScript, and has a lot of features in terms of being able to do either server-side rendering, browser-side rendering, or some hybrid that allows proxy objects. You can embed Flutter apps in it, so you could actually be a hybrid solution there. But it's a lot lighter weight for a website than, say, a Flutter website would be. So check it out. But just got released with a big new doc package. I don't know if that's made it all the way to the web, but this is live. His Discord.
Well, one of the this is an example here. So this is actually HTML DOM. Just selecting your browser, and there's the code that runs it. That's Dart code.
Yep.
So it has a very similar feel to what you might do, and there's even a river pod.
Yeah, it has components. It has components which are mimicking the protocol that the Flutter widgets have in terms of a widget tree, and so there's a lot of similarities, overlaps, things like that. You can use native CSS and JavaScript, or you can also use the styling system that comes with Jasper in terms of styling the components. So it's a pretty great idea, and I'm glad he keeps plodding forward to release more and more stuff. But the fact that it works with RiverPod out of the box is pretty interesting.
Maybe we should. So I was talking about like running a web server on one of these, like a Flutter-based web server, one of these like little gadgets and gizmos.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe we should do a Jasper site and have it running on one of these, like as like an admin panel. That maybe we'll do that next week as a coding.
Yeah. So, cool.
All right. What was the other thing we were talking about? I mean, has anyone got any requests? Otherwise, I have like.
Oh, you'd mentioned earlier maybe doing something with Listenable Builder.
Yeah. So I think it's I guess what we could do. We need an example. So we're going to have a. Okay, let's do that. So let's do a stateful widget. We're going to call it build box. Because why not? And then the idea about this is it's going to keep track of a build count. Yeah. And we're going to display that on the screen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. And then it's going to be a aspect ratio of 1. And it's a placeholder. In the placeholder one. Text that has the build count. And if we're very clever about this, we could even, in fact, change this to a fitted box. I think alignment's centered by default, isn't it? Yeah. Add padding instead. Okay, so each time it's going to get built, it's going to increment, and then we're going to display that on screen. right? And then we're going to put build box in a wrapper material, make it white. And then what we can do is have a, I kind of want to use the new scrolly stuff, but maybe it's a bad idea. We'll find out. So Sliver main access group. Why not? Add more complexity. Well, you got to learn somehow, right? Anyway,
I'm like, yeah, sure.
Sliver cross access group.
Sliver bells, sliver bells. It's Christmas time in the city.
How many across do we have? 4. And then
you are missing an I in line
yeah.
68.
Yeah, it's big red thing tells me I'm missing something.
Yep.
Been an idiot. So this will say Y. I don't know. 40. Maybe that's. Right, and then what we'll do here is let's just rename it to X. Right. So we should have a large grid here. I have screwed something up apparently. Burn. I've broken.
Red
Global?
screen of death.
What?
Red screen of death.
Global key detected in widget tree.
Oh.
That doesn't seem right.
Oh. Now this seems right. It's rent. I don't know where that other thing came from. I think that's probably because the error widget's using global key or something like that. But anyway, render sliver has received a render aspect ratio. Basically, I've put a box child but as a sliver, so that's what's complaining around. But that's fine. We're going to magically turn this into a sliver. Ready? We call it sliver box build, and then wrap this and sliver the box adapter. Yeah. Hello. And it's a sliver. There you go. So I had 2 builds already.
2.
Look, when I scroll, guess what? It's not building. Well, this is what you want, right? This is what you expect it to do, not build unnecessarily, right? I want to scroll back up. Let's keep going. Oh, it's not enough. Let's make more. Let's do more. More rows. More rows. 200 rows. Scroll. There we go. So now I've got some new ones. They've only been built once. Right. Scroll back up. And look, the 3s have gone, right? Because, no, they're back. I'll tell a lie.
They didn't, yeah.
They didn't get recycled yet. But anyway, I can keep going. Let's keep going. Anyway, and then go back up. Let's see if we can get it to lap them. Oh, no. Okay. Well, it's deciding not to do what I wanted to do, of course. Anyway,
well, that just has to do with how that has to do with how they determine it's the same widget, right?
No, not on the slivers.
Okay.
But
why did it roll?
This is going to look like it's not scrolling because there's just too many things the same size. But 2, scroll back up. Yeah, 2. Okay, so not 1 anymore. It's interesting that it says 2, but I'm guessing that there's a double build that takes place at some point. That's fine. But you notice they're not like increasing. Right, cool. So if we were to have it so that if I tap on one of these, it does set state on the widget. Yeah, I think that's a good sort of example here. So we'll wrap this in a gesture detector. That's inkwell. And I'm doing it inkwell so we can visually see the tap, right? It's easier that way. And we'll just have this do set state. And,
visually see. Is there a different way of seeing it?
No, but what I'm trying to, yeah, shut up. Right. Anyway, so hot restart. So we're back to 1. Oh, 2, there you go. Now if I tap on 1, there you go. So I can increment each one.
Well, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Let's
It's
make
like
that.
the Flutter app a
But-
million times over.
What's interesting is the one below it's now a 3, right? You didn't tap on that one, right?
No, it was a 3 at some point. Let me just make these easier to see. So I'm hot reloading here.
Okay,
Yeah, but I'm hot reloading, right? Because the builds are going to take place.
Yeah.
So 300 hot reload. There you go. Right. So now if I tap, I'm telling it to rebuild, right? But remember the painting of the thing is not telling it to rebuild in every frame. It's just when I tap. And again, when I scroll, if I scroll down, it's interesting that it's actually. I wonder if that it built these to get the dimensions at some point. I don't know why they're all 5s. Kind of interesting, right? This doesn't feel like it's acting correctly, and I wonder if that's because it's Sliver. I wonder if there's something going on here with the Sliver main access group that I'm not aware of. Maybe we can start have a look in a minute. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to just drop that out of the equation. Just want to see what happens. It's definitely not behaving the way I expect right now. Right, sorry, hot restart. There we go. 1, and it apparently builds again. Anyway, so if I tap on some of these, right, there we go. We've got some 5s. That's really interesting that we have 2 there. I'm just really surprised their state's being maintained that without any sort of request to do so. I wonder if that's like
Isn't there an automatic keep alive being thrown in there?
no, not on a
Only on list view builder, right?
yeah. Interesting. Oh, someone's posted an issue. Is this a bug? Is this a new bug? That'd be funny. So let's have a quick wander. So Flutter issues. And what number was it?
142183.
183. January this was. Okay, so a quick look. Sliver main access group causes lazy children to build eagerly. This is not the way it's supposed
But you
to
got
work.
rid of that, and it's still doing it.
Yeah, but there is a cross-access group on them. But I wouldn't assume that that's the way either. Let's do this. Let's do Sliver to box adapter here, right? Child, and then make this a row. Let's just see what happens, and we'll change this to. This would be 1 row at a time, right? Where are we?
Yeah, 390.
Right. Okay. So let's rebuild that. Oh, what did I do? Oh, yeah, because each one needs to be expanded. Yeah. Right. Let's do it again. Okay, so that's interesting. 2. All right, so let's get these up to, I don't know, 7. Yeah. Scroll. Keep going. The very bottom. Yeah, and scroll back up. I wonder if it's just because they're not being built. So, I mean, it's still 7. I would not expect that. So yeah, I don't know. We could go hunting for that, but let's go back to what we're actually trying to do here, which that puts back to the slivers, and then yeah, and then we can. All right, so could have a look at this actually. Cache extent merged. I mean, this is. Oh, I know it is. I think I'm running an older version of Flutter. I think I'm running quite an old version of Flutter right now. That's probably what this is. That bug does exist, probably. I can't remember why I've changed it right now. All right. I think I'm running like 316 or something.
Can I ask why?
I have some limitations on another project. No, 322.1. I don't know. It's just not working right now. Anyway, we could hunt that one down and submit a PR, but let's move on to actually what we're trying to do here, which was okay. So we rebuilding when we tap on them, right? We do a set state, which is great. Let's say now we add a title bar. So let's make this a scaffold, and just convert this briefly, and then we'll add an app bar, and inside this app bar we'll have a title that says I don't know, action count. I don't know. I'm doing something. Actions, whatever. And again, we'll pop a little number in here. And then what we'll do when you, there's the actions. Actually, no, we'll put a floating action button.
An FAB.
FAB.
Just like on Thunderbirds. FAB.
No one even knows what it is anymore. I
but you know,
because I'm old. Because I'm old.
I know.
Oh no! You mean to say no? You're not. No, of course you're not. Like,
yeah. No. If you remember the Thunderbirds, you go back a ways.
Action, do, go, and give me golf course. Let's do golf course. Whatever golf course is.
But that is what I think every time I see FAB.
I know. Why am I? Isn't it icon? Icon.
I think it's just nothing.
Oh.
Yeah. It's like,
there we go.
Okay.
Right. And then what we'll do is we'll say set state this plus. Right. This is a pretty contrived example, but it'll do for now, right? Because it's simple enough. Right. So
aren't all examples ultimately contrived?
Right. So what we should see here is action 0. And if we tap on a little golf pole, of course, it's going to make me a liar. It's going to make me a liar.
It should increase the items.
Hang on. Why are you not doing what I'm just told? The one time, like, I'm trying to make the platform do something, and it's been nice to me. Is it because I'm using slivers? No. It's just knowing that it doesn't have to rebuild them because nothing's changed, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. But let's contrive. I'm going to make this a really badly contrived example. Don't do this. But the issue still remains. So just yeah. Sorry. Just close your eyes. I don't know. Right. So what I'm doing is I'm forcefully rebuilding the custom scroll view, right? But anyway. So what should happen here is every time I count, I'm going to have it rebuild, right? So I'm losing all my state on the inside right now because this state is rebuilding everything, right? Well, what I actually can do is set up action count as a value notifier, right? In this case, of an integer of some other type, right? And then instead of increasing the actual notifier, increase the value inside the notifier, and we don't have to do set state, right? So this way, we're not rebuilding this entire widget. And then over here in our title, our text widget that actually uses the action count, well, that can now have a listenable builder. Listenable builder. Used to be animated builder, remember that? Anyway.
We can still use the animated builder if you want.
Nah, this is fine. It's the same difference.
Exactly.
There is a value listenable builder, which I'll show you in a second. But anyway, so what this is going to do is this listenable builder is going to listen to the action count value notifier. And then when it changes or when it marks as notify listeners, it will then call the build method, right? So if I restart, and okay, yeah, we have a toString, obviously. Let's just fix that. Value, yeah. Right. Okay, so tap on these. So we're gonna have those build. And now if I tap on the golf thing, the number at the top changes, but the bottom doesn't rebuild anymore. Even though I'm using a key with that value, because it's not calling the build method anymore, right? So it's not running all these functions. It's not running all the constructors anymore. It's not rebuilding any widgets, right? So that is the value of using these things. And then, of course, you've got value listenable builder. And then what that does is you pass over a value listenable, which is what we've got. So this is the difference between a value notifier and a change notifier, right? A listenable builder can work with any listenable. It can be a scroll view. It can be anything. In fact, I'll show you what happens with the scroll view in a second. But if you do this, then you can pull out the value. So in this case, count. And then count you can use directly inside. So the idea is it automatically pulls out the variable, holds that state necessary for the build function to run. So if I restart again, back to the initial states, or we'll increment some of these, and then build, and again, that number changes, but the bottom doesn't rebuild. And again, that's because only this one widget, this builder function, is being rebuilt each time that value changes, and again, given the new value, right? There's also a nice thing you can do here. So what can we do? Yeah, let's do this. Yeah, there are rebuild counts. So there's always been rebuild counts, by the way, in I don't have half my Flutter panels anymore. I think I've been playing around my settings too much. Oh, look, Flutter deep links. We've got a new panel for it. There you go. You can validate deep links. Yeah, so rebuild stats here. If people don't know it, you can turn that on, and then what will happen is when frames happen, it'll count what's actually being rebuilt. That's really interesting. That's building a lot. And there's definitely a bug here. 807 texts.
What?
That's no way there's 800 should be being built, full stop.
Because that's a lot of things not visible being built.
800. Basically, it's doing 800 widgets below, which would make sense.
What?
200 times 4. That means it's building everything. This can't be right. We're gonna. So DevTools also has this in now. That's what the remark was in the chat. I really want to track this down. Do we want to have a look at this? See what's going on?
Wow.
Do you guys want to? Should we have a look?
You're using an old version of Flutter, you just said, though.
No, well, no, I thought I was, but I'm not. I'm
No,
using
the new
322.
Okay.
So that's new enough not to have this issue, because this is from January, right? Also, I'm just using, if I'm not even using Sliver cross-access group, I'm just using slivers. Is it because this is not, hang on. It shouldn't be processing all the slivers. It shouldn't be trying to build all this. No, wait. Is this me? It's because I'm doing slivers, right? If this was Sliver, do you know what? It's me. It's me. It's my fault. Yeah, I know it is. Watch this.
Oh, you didn't use a builder.
Yep. So, yep. Where am I? Context and why is that not?
All right, I'm gonna get back to the day job. I'm sorry, everybody, I was late. Missed most of the show.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
I'm also going. So yeah.
Yep.
Thanks for stopping by.
See you guys next week.
Of course. Oh,
Hope to
see you
see you.
later.
Sorry.
We solved the mystery. It's boring now. So,
Yes.
see you next
guys.
time.
Thanks.
I think this is gonna. Oops. Oh, hold on. It expanded. So, right. Get rid of that. All right, and then we'll just change this to a non-Sliver variant. Okay, what does this give us? There you go, more 32. That's more like it. And then if I scroll, last frame 4. See that? Each frame is only 4 because so this key here, these two numbers are a bit small. This is 4. This is total for the screen because we haven't reset the count, right? So if I this would be like ever increasing. This is like the total, right? But if these two numbers match, then it's just saying that every frame you're doing this count, right? But this is not the case. Every frame we're doing 4, which is 1 row, which makes sense because we're scrolling and we can't. Sometimes jumps up to 8 because we're scrolling 2 rows at once.
Yeah.
Also, this will now lose the state. So now the issue that we had before was tapping on these and we weren't losing the state. If I scroll up, scroll to the bottom, and scroll back up, I will be back to 1. Should be. Yeah. Perfect.
Wow.
That's the expected
Yeah.
behavior. Okay. So that's good. And what will happen now is that's a good question actually. If I now rebuild, let this do set state on everything.
And that's because you were before, because you weren't using the builder, you were building them all every time. Right?
Say that again.
Because you weren't using the builder, you were building them all every time.
Yeah. Because it runs through the constructors, right? It's just like anything. The slivers are going to run through all the constructors.
Okay, right.
When building it, right?
Sure.
But it's still not. The difference is it's still not laying out or rendering them.
Okay.
Right. So it's still more optimal. Just want to be clear on that point. Like, yeah. Anyway, let's magically just flip this back to how it was. I'm just kind of curious, but. Why have we got errors? Null check. Null check. What have we got null for? Widget inspector. Oh, that's not my problem. The actual widget inspector itself has got a bug in it, apparently. Anyway. Someone asked what those. Oh yeah, the yellow progress indicators over here are the rebuild indicators because you don't know on it. It's hard to tell on each frame if it goes too quickly. So these stay for a certain period of time. So it really shows you which ones are being rebuilt per frame, right? And then these numbers, these lines at the top. If you notice, if I stop scrolling, they stop moving. That's because each one of these lines is a frame of graphics, and if it goes above this line, 60 millisecond line, that's 60 FPS, which means that this one frame skipped. You skipped a frame here. It's got jank. The red ones are janked frames, but this is what you expect in development, right? Like you're going to expect to see this because it's doing a lot more behind the scenes. In fact, turning off the widget tracking, you probably get less jank frames. There you go. Oh, maybe more. Anyway, so yeah. Anyway, back to where we're doing. What was doing? Yeah. So if I, oh no, okay, well, whatever. Anyway, right, back to what we're trying to do. So the main thing is, yeah, that worked, and it even helped us debug our issue and fix it. So that's great.
Yes.
Right, let me undo that because I want in the example back build that. Right. So what was I trying to do here? I've completely forgotten now. Nope, it's gone. Actually, let's have a look at this. So if I do a Sliver main access group here, right, and inside this do let's have a look. kind of curious. Let's do a for loop. And in fact, we'll do a Sliver cross-access group again. And we'll do this as 2. Is that a Sliver align? Right, Sliver alignment. It should be. That'd make my life easier. I guess I could do center. We're going to find out, aren't we? Do this as maybe find out 10 rows. There's also an indicator we can turn on. No worries, Frey. Have a good time. I've had a good time. Right. Let's live to box adapter. Oh, I don't want to rename you. In fact, actually, let's do it without that. I'm just see it. Okay. So we've got a box, and I'm just going to add another variable to this, just so we can maybe in the ones. So we'll add a color, and start. I know we can't do that. We'll make it required, and then replace the color for our. Right, and then we'll add color up here. Yes, we can't define. And this one, it's got red accent shade. Want to do shade? I think shade on this. Okay. Am I?
Doesn't like shade.
Oh, just because it's constant. It's a bit annoying. Right. All right. So restart.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun. Remove. Yeah. I was wanting to give that a go. It was going to work. Right. So here's us. Here's some grey ones. Scroll down. So that's cool. Look, you're getting those rebuilt more, but then they return back. So you can have them keep their state. So that's something else I wanted to show you briefly. But let's just look here. So if I scroll down, keep going, we should get to some red ones. Wow, I did way too many. There we go. Let's have a red one. I'm just curious if I scroll back up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So they're not going to be laid out painted, that's for sure, for certain, but they're going to be built and they maintain their state, which is good to know. So back to what we're doing here. Yeah, so let's say we did want to keep their state when they're being rebuilt like this. So when we scroll those off and then we come back, they're reset to 1 now. We want to keep them as 2. So one way you can do that is if we go to our box builder here, you say with automatic keep alive client mixin. And what this does is it sends up keep alive notifications up the tree to the keep alive widgets that are wrapping each of the items, and that's applied for you automatically by list builder. In fact, this is done by list view as well, but list view is simply a sliver list inside, and inside the delegate by the builder, add automatic keep alive true. So if you don't want to keep alive support, you can turn it off, and it reduces some of the widgets in your tree. Same for repaint boundaries and semantic indexes if you need to, but most of the time you just leave them on. Anyway, and then you have to implement two things. One is a getter to say if you want this widget to be kept alive or not. So it can be optimal to be able to change this at any point. So for example, let's say you're playing a video and then you scroll the screen. You want this widget to be kept alive because the video is playing, right? And when it scrolls a bit down, it's still playing in the background. However, when it's not playing, you may want to return false from keep alive. So it recycles it nicely, right? So you get a choice. So we'll say we want to keep it always alive. Now, the only way you can keep it alive is if you tell it when it builds. And you do that by calling the super build method in the mixin. So I'll do this, and I always put a little comment to show that it's for automatic keep alive mixin. I feel like that's a bit more clarity as to why you're calling super build, which you don't normally do. And all this does is has a side effect of calling ensure keep alive. I feel like they could have done this a slightly better way. In fact, there is definitely a better way, but yeah, it's you have to be a separate widget and not a mixin. But yeah. All right, so now if I say put these at 5 and then scroll back up, there should be at 5 still. Yeah. So this is basically doing. It's very similar. It's not the same. It's very similar to what we're doing on the outside. Basically, what's happening now is the widgets are actually being destroyed, but the states are being kept. So this state object's being kept. And then when the new widgets come back on, it will reattach the state widget to the new widget. So that's how that works.
Cool.
Anyway, I think that's about it. Unless anyone's got anything else.
Haven't seen anything in the chat that's significant. So. We still have a small but loyal crowd watching.
So this is interesting, right? So now when I'm scrolling, this is the difference between what we saw earlier with the Sliver main access group. So now when I scroll, so just rebuild this just to make sure we're starting from scratch again. Okay, so 52 texts, right, which is definitely reasonable. 4 when I scroll here. And when I go back up, it's because remember it's keeping the state. When I scroll back up, give it a second. I guess it doesn't need to at the top because it's only got the app bar. Okay, keep going. But yeah, it's only 4 here. And when I hit the bottom red, yeah, see, that's acting like I would expect it to before. So it's only rebuilding. I don't know why that 800. I thought that's another bug. I think that Sliver main access group has a bug. See, now I've got that as, a second to this, not the very first item. This is taking up the visible portion at the beginning, and then this is taking up the second. And if we put this at 100 times 4, is it 8? Something. I don't know. It should be 400, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Last time 800. If I restart this, I'm gonna restart the app. Maybe I'm just thinking about this differently. I mean, you could have a Sliver main access group with a Sliver list inside each one, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do. Whatever. Anyway. It would be really nice to build a million real-time checkboxes project with Flutter.
Okay.
As in what? What do you mean, a million? Do you know what we could do? We can make widgets that display red, green, or blue in different brightnesses, like a pixel. And we display millions of them. And then we load an image and we change the state of each one of the widgets. And you make a picture appear on the screen.
Okay. Sure. Yes, you could do that.
You could. Would you want? Would it be a good? No. Anyway, all right. I think
I remember back in the CGI Perl days, I made a demo page where you have a text field that you have by having drop downs for each letter. So you would have to like find the T and then the H.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got so much better ways of doing things now.
Oh no, yeah. It was a joke. It clearly wasn't meant for real consumption, real production. Absolutely.
Yeah, but the thing is, you talk about this, right? But then, I remember you do things in like on any one of the microcomputers, right? So that your Commodores, your Spectrums, even DOS, right? Like it's actually how these work currently, how machines work currently. You would effectively have a frame buffer. You have your memory, which is used to display your graphics card to display pixels, and you push data into those spaces to render images on the screen, and that's how your all apps would work, right? It's just like that's now, because that was CPU bound and now it's GPU bound. You send commands, so you put a command set instead of pixels, send that across to the graphics card instead of using shared frame buffer, and then and the result is that it renders the pixels into its own frame buffer and displays that. It's the same thing though.
It's like I remember the technology of the Atari 2600, which was basically it had one processor that during the actual ray going down your screen had to be sending out all the right colors to paint the page, and only had the time during the vertical retrace to do any calculations. And so for the chess app they came out with, it would just randomly flash different screens so that it had more time to do calculations.
I have the best video on that topic. It's super interesting. Exactly the one you're talking about. Racing the beam is what they used to call it, which was you would have to write the memory. You only had 5 registers to like draw everything on the entire screen. And you'd basically be programming the registers to control the electron beam, so you could change the colors as the electron beam would pass the screen. And this is like you didn't have, and you only had enough CPU power to do that. So that the end of each beam, in the retrace
interval,
in the retrace period, to have the electron beam go back to the beginning of the line for the next line, or go back to the top of the screen. That was the only time you had to do your
actual calculation,
collision detection, and everything else that you need to do.
Amazing.
I love programming in those areas because it gives you constraints, right? And it's interesting to try and fit your program and programming those constraints to do something. And I think we lost that now. It's one of the things I like about those challenges, like the 5K source code challenge. It's definitely not as nice. I think it's not as fun as it is back with those other things. Even with Simulate, it's still more fun. But for me, at least. But the 5K source code is definitely that kind of challenge. Like, what can you do to try to pare down like your code to achieve something? Anyway, if people are interested in chasing the beam, there is a video link in the chat. I highly recommend it. In fact, the channel is Retro Game Mechanics Explained, and there's huge numbers of cool videos on his channel. So I'll post that. Share alike. There you go. All right, we'll call it there.
The YouTube link I posted earlier was the cumulative count of all the FABs in the entire series of Thunderbirds, and who sent them.
How long is that video?
It's about 3 minutes, 4 minutes. You might want to play it.
Okay.
Start it. At least start it.
I don't know if I want to, because I'm just going to get stuck in my head. Like it's going to
get No, do it. I dare you. Do it. FAB. FAB.
I don't know. I may do.
It's got the count.
You remind me of all the other.
Brains has apparently a couple of FABs. Yes.
You reminded me of all the other shows that were like that, like Joe 90 and Captain Scarlet. Anyway. Right. Check out the links, everyone, and we'll see you same time, same place next week.
Check out the updated Jasper, definitely.
Yes, definitely.
New documentation. Shultek could be on the show, actually.
I'll get set up, and the next stream we'll do some embedded live coding with some Flutter and
awesome
stuff. Cool. All right. Thanks everyone for coming, and we'll see you same time, same place next week. Bye.
166 hours.